Hey guys, I'm just going to show you making easy steerable nose gear. Posted this document in the how-to section, or in this article. You can download these off the internet, print them off. I think I have them in a Word format, so just don't touch anything and just hit print. They should come out to the right size. If you're wondering, that should be 1.5 inches across each of these formers if you want to check your scale. But here's what you'll end up with, is something like this. Fairly simple steerable nose gear. I don't have it quite completed yet because I'll be showing you how to finish that off in this video. So first step is to print these off and take the top from here up and stick that onto a scrap piece of foam board and get those cut out. Tried to make this so that you can just lay a ruler on here and get all these cut out. You should just be able to cut right between the black lines on these. Try to make them all about as equal as possible. And just slice through them. Forgot to mention too, when you're cutting this out, make sure to leave this intact because you'll be laying your wire on top of that to make your landing gear shape here. That fits right over there. Just keep that intact, but everything else can be cut out on this board. There's little squares up in the corners, in the top right corners of all these. Don't cut those out, and just cut the large square out and cut out the little rectangles at the bottom of each of these. On these number 5, 4, 3, and 2. Leave number 1 solid, and 6 and 7 are a little bit shorter to account for this bump up right here for extra support for the landing gear when this goes through, like that. I'll be talking about a bunch of different things to make that hole. You can also use things like gift cards and stuff like that on those. So I'll finish getting these cut out. Now before I glue these together, I'm going to take just a small pin, poke a hole right in the corner of the dotted square that I've put on these. This is where your landing gear wire will go eventually. And poking a hole in these first just helps to make your hole straighter. I lay these out in order because I'm going to be taking the paper off of all of them, and I don't want to lose track of which one I'm starting with. Start with 1 on the bottom and 7 goes up on top. So I'll just start taking the paper off, gluing them together. Okay, I got these all glued together, and I just wanted to show you. You can see a hole in there for your servo. I'll go right in there with that. Piece number 3 has the side cut out. That's so that you can stick your servo wire through here, and run that up the back, and your servo will fit right inside the slot here, nice and tight, just like that. Remember this former number 1 for the side number 1. Has a hole in it as well to put that wire through. So when you glue this on, there's a hole for that wire to come through. Okay, I finished cutting out the pieces and I glued them all together. And I shoved my landing gear through that hole just to make sure that fits and goes through there pretty well. You can see that hole lines up right there with for the servo wire to go through. So this block is pretty much ready to go. The next step is to take a gift card, or I don't have any gift cards, so I'm going with these tongue depressors or giant popsicle sticks. And I'll just do like I did to this one. Just glue 2 of them on the bottom, a couple across there to give it a little bit wider base for support. And then put 1 of them across the top too. Remember, when you glue these on, you want to be able to find that hole again. So just glue 1 of them on, and stick a drill bit through, then glue the bottom on and run your drill bit through the other way. Otherwise you'll lose that hole and you'll have to try and guess where it's in. Run through a couple options too, as far as how to brace the gear in this hole so that it doesn't flop around and you have a hard landing. I just came across these little black rubber piece that's used for mounting servos, and then these little brass sleeves. They're almost like a little rivet or something, but they fit inside the black rubber piece. These are great. I think they come with most every standard size servo. So once I have those holes drilled, I'm just going to take these and shove them in that hole that we have. Then this landing gear wire fits perfectly right through there, and I think that give it a lot of support. So I'll get those tongue depressors glued on there and get the holes drilled, put these sleeves through. I'll show you what it looks like when that's done. If you don't have these sleeves, another thing I did with this one is I didn't have these sleeves yet. I just used some brass tubing, or you can find like a coffee stir stick or just anything to make a little bit stronger of a exit through the popsicle sticks. If you're using gift cards, you could probably just double up the gift cards in that area and drill your hole through there, and they'd be plenty strong too. I don't think it'd take a whole lot. Then once you have those grommets in, just go ahead and stick your landing gear through there. You can see it's fairly straight, fairly good looking. Okay guys, now that you have this block finished and you have the grommets in, or the sleeve in, or your doubled up gift cards, I set the servo in so I could see how that was going to sit for this next step. It's not glued in yet. Then you can take this and just set it to the side. The next step will be to create your steering arm, and for that I just took a standard size servo arm like this, and I just held it with the pliers, and I slowly drilled, stepping up to my drill bits one size at a time until my wheel collar fit inside the hole that I've created. And then you have to cut a little bit of a slot in the side of that for the set screw to fit through. So think of where you want that set screw to be. If you picture this block, if this is the front of your plane, that's the back of your plane. This is going to be sitting on there like that. So with the arm to that side, if you can't see that very well. If you want to be able to access the screw from the front, or from the back, or from the side, make sure you put the slot for that set screw in the right spot. And I took the set screw out, and I put some Vaseline on it. I've got a little syringe here with some Vaseline, and I just put that on the set screw and put it back in. That way the glue won't stick to it and seize up that set screw. Then you have something to be able to turn. So this time I just used super glue. For my last one I used epoxy, which I can't find my epoxy right now, so I'm just going to use some super glue. See how that works, and I'll maybe update the article and say use this a few times and see if super glue is strong enough. I'll show you on the landing gear. I've bent the wire out already according to the plans, and I think that's fairly self-explanatory. If you're going to use smaller wheels, just shrink the plans down to whatever size wheel you're going to use, so that this length from the 90-degree bend to the first 45-degree bend is about the radius of your wheel. To make sure to keep this vertical axle in the center of your wheel, so that you don't create torque on your landing gear when you land. Now for the next step, I'm going to use that same standard servo grommet and sleeve as a spring stop. You could also use another wheel collar here if you have another one that fits this, but the 45-degree bend stops that from sliding down any further. Now I'm going to take a spring from a pen, so you can get a few different lengths of spring depending on what pen you take apart, and set that down, and that wheel grommet and sleeve stop that spring from going any further down. Then I take my steering assembly here, and I'll slide my wheel up into it, and you can see that stops right there and creates a real nice suspension effect, so that when you come in for a rough landing you have some suspension and give on that front wheel. so that it doesn't tear your airplane apart. Another thing that's important to remember is there's a slight angle back on there. That's just so that when you're rolling forward, the wheel naturally wants to go straight. If it's leaning forward a little bit, it's going to want to flop to one side or the other. We'll set that on there and set that up. And just grab my Allen wrench and tighten that onto there. Okay, the next thing to do is to create your push rod. And when I do the push rod, I like to use a hole fairly close to the center of the servo, and a hole as far out as possible on the steering arm. That way you get the most amount of torque from your servo to the steering, and the least amount of torque from your wheel back to your servo. And so if something hits a wheel, it's not going to want to push your servo as hard as if you had this towards the center of the steering arm. That would create a lot of torque, and you could strip gears in your servo. Although that's how I use just a 9-gram servo with plastic gears without stripping it out. I got the push rod hooked up, and you can see when I turn this, most servos have like 120 degrees of servo throw, so if I'd go within 45 degrees from center, you can see that's a fairly good turn there, and then if you go back 45 degrees the other way, that's a fairly good turn there too. So most servos can go about 60 and 60, so you should have a fairly good turning radius with this setup. Now to mount this in your fuselage tube, all I have to do, this is a slightly smaller tube than I designed this for. I think this is a 1.5 inch tube, and this is designed for a 2 inch Experimental Airlines type tube. But you just slide this inside the tube like that. I won't put it all the way in, but then all you do is take a dowel rod and put it, just above where that those popsicle sticks are on the front and back. So you just slide this in, pop it through like that, and then take a rubber band and wrap it around the outside, and that seems to hold it down fairly well. Just like a rubber band there, go around once there and then once there. That holds that dowel rod down and really pinches that landing gear against the fuselage tube pretty well, so that it's fairly sturdy. So I put one in the front and one in the back, and then once you have the block mounted in there, then I take the wheel and slide it back through the bottom of my fuselage and through the hole in this assembly here. It seems to work really well. If you like the wheels, I have a video on how to make these wheels as well, how to pop cans and some backer rod. If you guys have any questions, just leave a note in the comments, and I'll get back to you pretty quick. Thanks.